Okay, so this is just a quick video to kind of review some concepts that some people need reviewing for to help make a lot of these really big equations and word problems a little bit easier. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is positive and negative number rules. So I'm going to write up here positive and negative number rules. Okay, so a lot of you get a lot of these sort of little tiny things mixed up because it's been such a long time since it's been reviewed. And so go over this whenever you are unsure, or like just make a little page of notes that you can have somewhere near a math workbook, so that you don't forget the simple little things that can make your whole problem messed up. So two like signs always become a positive sign. So two like signs become positive. So that could be either like a positive and a positive equal a positive, or a negative and a negative equal a positive, because they cancel each other out, if that kind of makes sense. And even if it doesn't, just memorize it for now and you'll be able to get questions right. So then the other thing is two unlike signs become a negative sign sometimes. So when you have two unlike signs, so let's say we should do some examples because this is one of those ones that it's not always the same. So if you have, let's say, a 5 and you're adding it to a -2, right? The -2 is the smaller number and this is the bigger number, so your answer will remain positive, but you're still taking away 2 because it's a -2. So that's +3. But if you have the opposite, where you have, let's say, -7 and you're adding 2, the bigger number is negative, so that means you're going to keep the negative because it's the bigger number. Whichever is the bigger number is the sign you keep. So then -7 plus 2, that's going to end up being -5, because if you're in deficit 7, right, you owe the bank $7 and you got $2 and you give it to the bank, you still owe the bank $5. So just kind of think of it that way. Okay, so if you're talking about multiplication though, which is a little bit different, and you have, let's say, for the two like signs, if you have a negative times a negative, it's going to be a positive, or if you have a positive times a positive, it's going to be a positive, right? For two unlike signs, if you're multiplying and you've got, let's say, a negative times a positive, you're going to have a negative. And if you reversed it and you said, I'm going to have a positive times a negative, you're still going to have a negative. So the only time that you're dealing with which is the bigger number, that's when you're talking about addition and subtraction, if that kind of makes sense. So another thing that people are kind of getting a little bit forgetful about is order of operations. So I'm going to draw a line. And I will also try to post this as a PDF, although I don't know how much sense it'll make without the narration point. But anyways, okay. So order of operations. So that's like PEMDAS. which some of you learned at some point. I know we reviewed it maybe a while ago, but it was a while ago, and I don't know what happened to a lot of your notes. They probably are potentially lost at this point, and the book definitely doesn't do a good job of going over reviewing stuff that you learned in previous years. So this just means when you have an equation, this is the order in which you're going to solve the things in the equation. So the first thing you're going to look for is parentheses. So that's the P. So I'm going to try to write it going like vertical, like one of those poem things, but we'll try and see. Parentheses. And then the next one's exponents, which we have not gotten to, so don't worry about that. Then multiplication. Then division. Addition. And subtraction. So this is just the order, like this is, if I were to draw an arrow like that, and then if I were to write, I would say that this is the first thing that you do, and this is the last thing that you do. First thing, last thing. Okay. So another thing that I want to review before this little review video is over is opposite operations when you have an equation and you need to get rid of x. So we'll just title this How to Get Rid of X, or How to Get X Alone. So I could say, let's say we have a problem that's like, let's keep it simple, like 2x equals 15. So to get x on its own and the number away, you're going to always do the opposite operation. So use the opposite operation to isolate x. So the opposite of, so for multiplication, right, it would be division. For division, it'd be multiplication. For addition, subtraction. And for subtraction, it'd be addition. So for this one, I'm going to go and say, okay, I want to get rid of this 2. It's being multiplied, right? That's like really an invisible multiplication sign. So I'm going to do division to get rid of it. So I'm going to go divide by 2. And this is a horrible example because that does not work out evenly, but that's okay. So x ends up being 15 over 2 because I had to divide it to get rid of it. Okay, how to get x alone with something other than multiplication. So let's say that x is part of a fraction. So let's say like you've got x over 2 equals 4. And I know whenever people see that, they get super scared because it looks horrible, but it's really not that bad. So if it's being divided, the opposite of division is multiplication, right? So I'm going to multiply it by 2. Oops, what is happening? Okay, multiply it by 2 over 1, multiply it by 2 over 1. And cancel these 2's out, so then I get x equals 8. So I would use multiplication to get rid of something that was being divided. And then for the addition and subtraction, usually that's going to be in your big, long equation. So let's say something like, I don't know, let's say we have 4x plus 2 equals 10. Something like that. So if I want to start getting x on its own, I still use opposite operation. So if 2 is being added to 4x, I'm going to subtract 2 to get rid of it. But whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other side. So I get rid of 2. I've still got 4x now equals 8. And then I have to do opposite operation again. So I go And do opposite of being multiplied is being divided. So divide by 4, and cancel, and then I get x equals 2. So it's always opposite operation. Hopefully that was helpful, and I will post this as a PDF on Google Classroom as a review. All right.